Yeah, I mean, there was one video that I made about foods that I would never eat as an emergency physician, and this got a lot of views and a lot of hate when it came to what I said about oysters because I just pass. I used to have oysters. I've definitely gotten sick from it once or twice, but I used to love going to get oysters. And the last several years, I just stayed away because I started to learn more and more about it as I saw more people coming in with seafood poisoning, and oysters are filter feeders. They, filter out from the bottom of the ocean and from the bottom of the water that they reside in, usually like I think brackish water near coastal areas. And they concentrate, certain bacteria species like Vibrio, which is harmful. And people argue with me and say, well, farmed is better than wild, and most that we now are farmed. So when you look at the literature, even the farmed varieties still have concentrations that could be dangerous of Vibrio. It's just in many settings it's less, but it's not negligible. And it also depends, like you said, not all farming is created equal. Some people farm their oysters high up, and some people farm their oysters low down. And if it's the lower down variety, that accumulates more Vibrio. So yes, a lot of, just slapping a label doesn't necessarily, negate the practices that they might have. So not everything is created equal in that context.
Yeah. And just to finish that topic, I mean, it's just that there's evidence which points out that eating fish, which is part of the Mediterranean diet, can help reduce cardiovascular disease. But again, I think Mediterranean diet is another topic on its own because there's a lot of controversy behind it. If it affects the population just in the Mediterranean only, does it behave the same to people who live in other countries? The source of the fish, there's so much into that just a Mediterranean diet is just going to be a podcast on its own. That'd probably be an hour or something debating and looking at evolution.
I think I'll just mention one thing very quickly on it is that we have to realize that it's a term that gets thrown around loosely, and Mediterranean can be interpreted as pasta and meatballs. And that's really not where Mediterranean diet originates from. It's a mostly plant-based diet, rich in a lot of produce, vegetables, legumes, nuts, olive oil, which these are great sources of fiber, the plants and olive oils and nuts as in terms of polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats, which replace a lot of animal fat. So, eating like large veal chops and beef, was not a staple of the original Mediterranean diet that we think of that comes, from the blue zones where people live to be about 100 and live healthy, long lives. So it's really simple. The more you look into proper nutrition and healthy diets, it all boils down to predominantly plants, getting some animal protein, but in moderation, with a heavier weight on fish like salmon, and consuming enough unsaturated fats from things like nuts and oils and legumes, which will improve heart health and your brain health, as opposed to heavy saturated fats, which might actually downstream with a diet that's heavy in saturated fats can lead to disease.